American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tellustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast brought to you by Coach Paint. My name is Nick Knudsen. My co-host is Robert Parker. Today is February 8th, 2021, and we will break down Tampa Bay's Super Bowl thrashing of Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I was asked by several friends and family what I thought about this game ahead of time, and basically the scenarios I gave, close game, could go either way, or Kansas City blowout. Didn't really see a scenario. I said the one thing that's not going to happen is a Tampa Bay blowout of Kansas City, because I thought that was impossible with the Kansas City offense. But Rob, that's exactly what we got on Sunday.
Yeah, you're right about that, Nick. And, the blowout happened for various reasons. And one of the main reasons was definitely Todd Bowles and that defense. Just getting pressure on Pat Mahomes throughout the whole game, it really kind of made Pat Mahomes struggle a little bit. And it kind of brought him back down to, the un-Superman, characteristics that we're known seeing with Patrick Mahomes. So I think that was one of the main reasons that, this game was a blowout, because of that defense and that defensive front seven.
Eric Fisher, left tackle for the Chiefs, Achilles injury. Mitchell Schwartz has been out since midseason. I should say without mumbling his name. Back injury, I believe. So when you're missing your two pillars, that's difficult for any offensive line. But I really thought with Pat Mahomes, they'd figure out a way, despite that fearsome front of JPP and Dominican Sue, Vita Vea, and Shaq Barrett. Those guys have been given everybody fits this year. And I know Brady gets the face of the franchise. He gets all the love, and certainly Brady has had his impact on this team. But Rob, this team has been a defensive team from day one, and the offense is good. But I mean, that's what makes Tampa so good, is that both units are very solid, and the defense has a down week. The offense can pick it up, and that's the type of football you want to see. But, man, both of them, this is one of the few games this year where we saw both units really excel and play at a high level.
Yeah, you're right about that. And that's the thing that we don't say necessarily in regards to the Kansas City Chiefs. Their defense is not the unit that you kind of rely on. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, it's all about the offense. The defense just really doesn't have to shut down teams, because, you kind of feel like Patrick Mahomes and that offense can kind of, step on the gas and overcome the defense efficiency that the Kansas City Chiefs have. But just going back to Tampa Bay, they have a complete unit. They have the offense that you need to win the Super Bowl, and they have the defense that you need to win a Super Bowl. And they were clicking on all cylinders, last night. And, that's why they came out victorious. But the defense did kind of, step it up a notch and kind of shut down, the playmakers that Kansas City had on the other side of the ball.
I did not see this coming in year one for the Buccaneers of Tom Brady. And let's just show how significant this was, because I know you could look at it and you could say, oh, they got Brady, Fournette. They've hit on these draft picks with these linebackers, with Devin White, with Levante David's been an excellent player for a long time. And you could say Brady stepped into a great situation, blah, blah, blah. But let's reflect on how historically significant this was. In year one of TB12, the Buccaneers capture their second Super Bowl title in franchise history, first since 2002. The team that was led by John Gruden, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Mike Allstott and company. Brad Johnson was on that team too. Brady now has 7 rings. All right. That is more than any other entire franchise in the NFL history. Rob, only 4 franchises even have one for the thumb. San Fran and Dallas have 5. Pittsburgh and New England have 6. Incredible.
Yeah, it's just amazing, the journey that Tom Brady has been on, since day one, not being a high draft pick and kind of, having that chip on his shoulder. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Nick. You said that he has 7 Super Bowl rings, more than, all franchises, and the reason for that is because just his willingness to win. He wants to win no matter what, and I think that mentality overcomes a lot, especially at his later age. But if you listen to Brady after the game, he kind of said, hey, he kind of had it easy. He was sitting on the bench and he was seeing Patrick Mahomes kind of run around like a chicken with his head cut off because of the defensive pressure that Tampa Bay was putting on him. So Brady can play for another 5 years if he can have a clean pocket and have weapons around him and the defense to play like that. And he's going to continue to keep winning because that's the mentality that he comes with, day in and day out.
And to me, on the surface, what you're saying, it sounds super corny. That Brady just wants to win. Everyone wants to win, right? So I kind of hate when I hear that in general and think it's lazy in general. But in this case, I don't, because you look at it, who are 2 of his bigger weapons throughout this playoff run? Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette. Were those guys in Tampa Bay because their other team said these guys lack talent, we're going to get rid of them? Or were they in Tampa Bay because they had acted like clowns at their previous stops and gotten cut?
Yeah, you're right about that. These 2 guys in Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown definitely have talent. I mean, more so Antonio Brown kind of did it to himself, more so than, the teams and everything. But you're right on Leonard Fournette. He's pretty much an outcast. He was a high draft pick. He kind of led, Jacksonville to the AFC Championship that one year where he had a big Pro Bowl year. But other than that, he really hasn't accomplished much in Jacksonville. And he pretty much got his position taken from an undrafted rookie. So, Leonard Fournette was one of those players that kind of had to, reshape and rebuild himself. And being on the team with Brady kind of helps that. It helps those young players who have talent actually put it all together. And I think Leonard Fournette put it together, in this playoff run.
Fournette's one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. Antonio Brown's one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. When they know they can be around a guy like Brady, he's gonna drive that talent out of them more so than other places. I mean, Fournette didn't lose his job to James Robinson because Robinson has more talent than him. Robinson's an adequate back. He had a nice season, but he lost that job in Jacksonville because he was coming up on a contract. The Jaguars did not trust him and did not want to pay him. And so I know he had I saw the tweet from him with the prayer hands and he's not going to forget getting waived by the Jags. So it's like, dude, you did that to yourself. Nobody's questioning your talent. You have unbelievable talent. You're one of the best running backs in football, but it's kind of whenever you feel like it seems like. And you know what? When you're playing Tom Brady, you seem to feel like it more often. So maybe that's where you need to stay. And I hope I hope those guys remember that when their contracts are up. I'm pretty sure both of them are on 1-year deals. And, you could go chase money and go try to be the guy elsewhere, or you could play with Brady and make these kind of runs again. So I hope they remember that. So I think you make a great point, even though I started off by saying that's normally something I think is corny, but with the Brady effect is real.
Yeah. I think the Brady effect is really real. It's kind of like, you watch these movies, you watch these TV shows, and it's always one leader that comes out on top, and the leader kind of galvanized the troops. And I think that's what Tom Brady is. He's a leader that galvanized the troops. Levante David actually told a story leading up to media day after they won the AFC Championship that someone was actually crying in the locker room, not not crying because, you know, of mourning, but crying because of joy and happiness. And then Tom Brady looks over and like, you know, what the hell you guys crying for? It's not over. The job is not done. So when you have somebody like that who understands, understands, hey, this is not the end. The end all be all is to host the Lombardi. I think that just elevates everyone's gameplay, and you saw that throughout the playoffs. Tom Brady, you go in and you knock off Drew Brees on the road. You go into Lambeau Field, one of the hardest, home field advantages out there to play in, especially because of the weather. Not necessarily this year with the fans, but just that frozen tundra. You go and you knock off MVP Aaron Rodgers, and then you come back and you knock off Patrick Mahomes. It's just an amazing run that Tom Brady has had this postseason, and that's why he's going to be up there as being the GOAT, and he proved that time and time again. But in this particular game, I really think the defense kind of stepped up and played, balls to the walls, and kind of, because at the end of the day, Tom Brady had an amazing game and he did what he needed to do. But this defense putting pressure on Pat Mahomes. I've never seen Pat Mahomes look this, inadequate as a quarterback before. We've seen him, kind of have ups and downs in his games, but he always pulls it off at the end. From the snap until the final snap for the Kansas City Chiefs, it really seemed like Pat Mahomes couldn't get it together at all, and that was because of Todd Bowles and that defensive scheme that they were playing. The defense was so physical going up against the receivers. It's a great story after the game. Antoine Winfield, I don't know if you caught it, Nick, where he kind of chucked up the deuces to Tyreek Hill. That's what Tyreek Hill does when he burns the receivers.
Well, he did it to Winfield earlier this season.
Yes, and that's what Antoine Winfield said. He said, hey, he felt disrespected because he burned him on the plane and he did a backflip in front of him. Yeah. So he was just like, he thought it was only right to kind of, pay him back with that. I just thought that was amazing. This defense was going to take it personal, especially from the Week 12 matchup where, Tyreek Hill had 200, first quarter receiving yards. So they were going to take this matchup personal, and they came out victorious at the end.
And that Week 12 matchup, that was something, Rob. Like we saw the Chiefs get out to a 21-0 lead in that game. Tampa fought back. They lost by 3, but it really was, they were down the whole game. And so I was really concerned about them getting off to a fast start. But let's just talk about this run real quick. We're going to cover the game every which way. We're going to get there. But I sat there because I follow this team. I live outside of Tampa. I'm not a Bucs fan. I like watching the local teams and stuff. And when you got Tom Brady playing down the street, you're going to pay a little extra attention, right? So Tampa sat at 7-5 through 12 games this season. Okay. The Bucs just went on an 8-game winning streak to close out the season and win the Super Bowl. The previous franchise record for a winning streak was 6 consecutive wins back in 1999. So you just set a franchise record for a winning streak to finish the season. But despite the good run they had back, we look back. You remember those Tony Dungy teams, and they couldn't quite get over the top, and then John Gruden comes in and gets them over the top, and you just remember. I remember years and years of them being in the playoffs and having a lot of success back in the day, but they have not been a good franchise in the last decade plus. I mean, this team's missed the playoffs for 13 straight seasons. Their last playoff appearance was 2007, and their last playoff win before the season was when, Rob?
Probably that Super Bowl run in 2002.
Super Bowl 37 in 2002. Yep. Super Bowl 37 was their last playoff win. So just to be clear, they have not won a playoff game. I mean, technically that was January 2003, but since after the 2002 season, and it's the 2020 season right now. All right. So we're going 18 years between playoff wins. Hey, the Bucs, they won 4 playoff games this season, right? Starting with Washington, New Orleans, Green Bay, down to Kansas City. Rob, 4 playoff wins this postseason. The franchise has won 6 total playoff games all time. And 3 of them were en route to that Super Bowl 37 victory. The other 2 came under Tony Dungy. So for all those great Tony Dungy teams, he won 2 playoff games in his years in Tampa, right? And then one came in 1979 during the Leroy Selman creamsicle days. They got to the NFC title game. They won their divisional playoff against Ron Jaworski and the Eagles. So literally they've won 6 playoff games all time. But outside of that one Super Bowl run, the rest of franchise history had won 3. They won 4 this postseason. Insane. Tom Brady joins Peyton Manning to become the only starting quarterbacks to win Super Bowls for 2 NFL teams. There's been 2 other quarterbacks, Rob, that have started Super Bowls. They didn't necessarily win them both. Craig Morton was one of them. Started for the Cowboys in Super Bowl 5 and the Broncos in Super Bowl 12. Who was the other quarterback that started for 2 teams in the Super Bowl?
Wow.
You're going to know this, too. And if you don't get it, you're going to be really angry at yourself for not getting it.
I really should know this. I really should. Man. I'm blanking for some reason right now. Wow. Yeah.
St. Louis.
Oh, wow. Thanks for the hint. Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner with which 2 teams?
The Cardinals and the previous St. Louis Rams.
There you go. St. Louis Rams, Super Bowl winner, and he lost to the Steelers with the Cardinals. So Kurt Warner. So literally, there's only been 4 quarterbacks that even made the Super Bowl with 2 different teams. Brady and Manning, the only 2 to win, which those 2 are the gold standard for the modern era that we grew up in. So fitting that Brady joins Manning on another list of historical facts. But Rob, take that all that information I just gave you, take that into account. Man, 4 playoff wins this season, and you've only won 6 all time as a franchise. How big was this accomplishment?
I really think this accomplishment was huge, not only for the franchise, but, just for the individual players. I know this is huge for Brady because even though, you compared him to Peyton Manning as being the gold standard where, those are the only 2 quarterbacks who actually won two Super Bowls with 2 different teams. But, Brady is the standard because he actually won, in 2 different conferences in the AFC and the NFC. Peyton Manning didn't do that because he was still in the AFC with, the Colts in Denver. So I just think, that just ups the ante right there. It's kind of like LeBron James winning in the Eastern Conference, then going out to the Lakers and winning in the Western Conference. So I really think, this Brady effect, it's true. It holds true because you've seen it with, the New England Patriots. I know they give Bill Belichick a lot of credit, which he rightfully deserves. But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick is not going on the field to kind of throw those passes. Bill Belichick is not handing left, handing right, and bringing the team down to kick a game-winning field goal. So this Tom Brady is definitely one of the greatest players ever. No matter what sport we're talking about. And the thing that, just like I harping on before, Nick, what makes him great is his willingness to win. He wants to win by, any means necessary. And he's going to hold that chip on his shoulder, knowing that, hey, no one initially wanted him. And now, he grew up and now every team wanted him. And then at the end of his career, only 2 teams reached out. The San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he decided to go with the Buccaneers. So out of all of Tom Brady accomplishments, only 2 teams wanted him, and he goes out and he wins the Super Bowl with one of those teams who wanted him. That just goes to show you his greatness right there.
And not a historically great franchise either, and not even recently good. This has been Tampa Bay is not a historically good franchise. I can't stress enough how big of a historic accomplishment this is, even though it's Tom Brady and even though they had all this talent, you feel like, well, they should have competed. They should win. I know. I get all that, but just appreciate the history, especially if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, of how big this was this season. Hey, the Chiefs came into this game 14-2, but in reality, Mahomes and the full strength Chiefs, they lost 1 game all season. They were on a 10-game winning streak before they essentially took a knee on the last game of the season against the Chargers. They started Chad Henne, rested the starters, and then they got through the playoffs. It wasn't always super easy. That win over the Browns was a dogfight, but they handled the Bills pretty easily to get here. Look, you thought the Bucs had a chance coming into this game, but the Chiefs offense is just so electric with Mahomes that it's just hard to see them being slowed down to any real extent, even with the pass rush we talked about. So if you're Mahomes in Kansas City, we know about the defensive front and the pass rush, but let's break down this game. Outside of the pass rush, you look at the penalties were an issue for the Chiefs all night, but what should we have seen any red flags about this team coming into this game that would make this performance any level of predictable? Because I watched a lot of Chiefs football this year, and they played some close games, they pulled out some close wins, but they were never totally shut down. They might have been shut down for a quarter here and there. Like the Dolphins game comes to mind in the regular season where they kind of were slow, but then it's like Golden State during the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant era where they would just pour it on all in like one quarter. You know, I I thought we would see that eventually last night, and it just never came to fruition.
Yeah, and I was right there with you. I mean, that's why I kind of spoke earlier in saying this is probably one of the worst performances from Pat Mahomes, and we know the players that they lost in the offensive line with Eric Fisher and their other tackle as well. But at the end of the day, we give Pat Mahomes all this credit to say, hey, he has Superman abilities at the quarterback position. He can overcome anything, and we've seen that. And for some reason, it just seems like he couldn't overcome the defensive pressure that Todd Bowles and that defense was bringing on him. It really seemed like his receivers couldn't get off the jam. They couldn't get open. I know Travis Kelce set a record for tight ends for receiving yards in the Super Bowl, but at the end of the day, that was kind of the scheme of things. They didn't want the defense didn't want to let anybody get behind them. It seems like we were going to let everyone catch their passes, and then we're just going to come up and tackle, and that's what pretty much happened. And Tyreek Hill was a non-factor in this game.
Well, let's break it down from the beginning. All right. So Tampa Bay, they get the ball. And normally I'm a fan of deferring till the second half, but Kansas City wins the coin toss. They end up deferring. And I was actually kind of glad for the Bucs that they got a shot to start with the ball because, again, my big concern with Kansas City was similar to last time. I hope the Chiefs don't bury them early, and we're going to be watching the Bucs try to play catch up all game. So I thought it was good for the Bucs that they got the ball back first, but they go 3 and out to start the game. And my first thought was, I'm officially concerned. You cannot go 3. You cannot do that against Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thinking that you're going to have, earlier in the game. If you kind of defer and Tampa Bay goes 3 and out, then the floodgates might open after that. But it didn't happen. Once again, one of the key things to this game was going to be the running game, which Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones had a heck of a game on the ground, and it actually helped keep Pat Mahomes on the sideline and kind of probably, affected his rhythm a little bit. And, he had various, other things that could have affected his play as well. Just like we mentioned, the offensive lineman being out, him trying to, fight through a toe injury. But at the end of the day, we've never seen, Kansas City offense get shut down like this. So that's just a testament of this defense and Tom Brady actually, managing the game, kind of being like that Peyton Manning that we remember with the Indianapolis Colts, where Peyton Manning just we talk about game managers at the quarterback position being negative or having that negative connotation out there, but you can be one of the all-time greats and manage a football game, and I think that's what we seen Tom Brady do last night.
Yeah, the two teams, they trade punts on their next couple possessions here. Kansas City, though, we started getting a preview on their second possession of how this game would go, because even though the Chiefs got on the board with a field goal, the biggest drive of the game was Mahomes scrambling around after being under pressure. He got around the edge, and he got out for an 11-yard gain, but he was under pressure. And you mentioned the toe injury. I thought Mahomes moved pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely tell, it wasn't a major factor. I don't want to go out there on record and say, hey, Pat Mahomes was banged up, because it's the Super Bowl.
I mean, I'm sure he was, by the way.
Everybody is banged up. Everybody is, nicked up, banged up. Everyone is fighting through injury. So I don't want to go out there and say, hey, this is the reason why, he had a poor performance. But it was definitely a variable in there to the level of play that he played. But at the end of the day, you're right. He pretty much couldn't stay in the pocket. He was getting flushed out, left, right. He was kind of improvising because the receivers wasn't getting open. The defensive scheme just played perfect until what Kansas City was trying to do on the offensive side. And actually, when it comes to Kansas City on the offense, we've seen their offense be so explosive, week in and week out. I just kind of helped to not think that, the Andy Reid situation with his son wasn't a factor in this, especially with the game plan and in the offensive scheme of things kind of being a distraction. So I think that's another factor that we can kind of put in there from the offense and seeing how they were playing on the offense side of the ball.
Andy Reid's son is outside linebackers coach for the Chiefs. He did not travel with the team to the Super Bowl. He had an accident. I believe, was it Thursday night, where he was pulling. I think he was getting off an exit, I read, and there was a car that had run out of gas, and another car had pulled over to stop them, and he hit the car that had pulled over to stop, which in turn hit the other car, and it sent 2 children to the hospital. So certainly some level of distraction for that, but I don't know how, maybe that impacts Andy Reid's level of concentration. But Andy Reid is such a pro. I think that guy knows how to compartmentalize distractions that you've seen before. If I'm not mistaken, I believe one of his sons dealt with addiction issues too. And did he lose one of his sons? I probably shouldn't speculate. I'm not speculating, but I want to say I had that memory that one of his sons might have passed away. I want to say it was when he was with the Eagles.
Yeah, I do remember. His family and his son had a battle with addiction. But just like you said, I don't want to go on record and speculate. I do vaguely remember that story.
The only point I was trying to tie that to is I think Reid has dealt with much more severe distractions in his family life. You don't get to this level where he's at without being able to handle a few distractions that I think much more had to do with the matchups on the field for sure. But hey, look, you get the big issue. I pointed out the Mahomes 11-yard run on that drive, that field goal drive, that first field goal, because that was one of their few big plays. We see double-digit plays out of the Chiefs like every drive typically, and that was one of the few we saw in the first half. And it's from Mahomes scrambling. It wasn't even like a pass or anything, but Tampa Bay gets the ball back after being down a field goal, and playoff Lenny, he shows up. He runs of 6, and 11, while Antonio Brown caught 2 passes for 21 yards. We talked about those 2 earlier and the impact they had. Capped off an 8-play, 75-yard drive that took up to 4.5 minutes with the familiar Brady to Gronk connection. Bucs up 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. Rob, I felt that the answer back off the field goal was huge, especially after I think Tampa was 3 and out and 4 and out on their 2 opening drives. To get that early lead was just a massive thing to do for their confidence, I felt like.
Yeah, it really was, and then I tell you what, the player that scored the touchdown, he definitely gives the team a boost with the Gronk spike. So just putting energy into everybody, and just to have that early lead, I think that was definitely big for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moving forward. And it really kind of seemed like the Kansas City Chiefs kind of went away from the running game. I mean, if you just look at the stats, Patrick Mahomes threw for 49 times. That's not a key recipe for your quarterback to have success, especially if it's 2 starting tackles is out of the game. You kind of wanted them to lean on the run. I know they got behind early, but at the end of the day, it just really kind of seemed like they just didn't want to run the ball all game.
To your point, they didn't run the ball in the first half.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't down in the first half. And hey, look, I know it's a Mahomes-led team, but this team does a little bit of everything. But so Tampa scores his touchdown on the next play, on the next drive. Kansas City comes out, Mahomes pass incomplete, short pass to Kelsey for 6 yards, and he throws another incomplete pass. So you throw 3 passes and go 3 and out. You don't even hand the ball to Clyde Edwards-Helaire once. And that's something. Hey, look, Andy Reid's teams are interesting because is this the first time Andy Reid's team's ever been questioned on not running the ball enough?
No.
Especially in the playoffs. Don't you remember? I seem to remember growing up a lot of like They didn't get the ball to Brian Westbrook enough, chatter. Like, so when Andy Reid's offenses are working, we never care about how much they run the ball, but when they're not, we do question it. But I'll tell you, the reason I question it is because the few attempts Hilaire got, I think he had 9 carries for 64 yards in the game. You would have liked to see that maybe a little more of a focus on that early on. So I think it's a great point there, Rob. So the Chiefs go 3 and out after that Bucs touchdown, and the Bucs, they continue that momentum on offense. Brady finds Mike Evans, he gets involved in the game. 31-yard gain down to the Kansas City 6-yard line. Tampa's defense, they went on, they got all the attention on the night, but this was one that I thought could be a huge momentum swing. Uh, Kansas City's defense, I said Tampa's defense gets all the attention, right? I thought so. If I didn't, that's what I meant. But Kansas City's defense here, they rose up here. They stuffed 3 Ronald Jones runs and a New England Patriots like near TD to a tackle eligible big man. But great play by the Chiefs to break it up. They stuffed the Bucs on the Jones run on 4th down, and the Bucs turn it over on the goal line.
Yeah, I that was a huge play for that Kansas City defense. But I tell you what, Ronald Jones, as a great running back, and he is. You have to have Leonard Fournette in that play to gain 1 yard. He's the more physical runner. So I just thought that was a wasted play for the Tampa Bay offense because of the personnel. In regards to having Ronald Jones in the game over Leonard Fournette. But I'm not going to take that away for the Kansas City defense. They held stout. They bowed their necks and they came out with a stop. And you thought the Kansas City Chiefs was going to go and try to put it in the end zone, but they didn't.
That tackle eligible player, he had that catch in the end zone. He had it, and then he got knocked out at the last second. I was sad for him because I would have liked to see a big man touchdown. But Kansas City gets the ball back like inside their 1 yard line. They end up punting, and it was a weird sequence of events because they end up punting, but rookie Tommy Townsend out of Florida, he drops the snap on the first punt. But then, I mean, Rob, did he punt it from about the 5 yard line? And he punted it all the way down to the other 25 I mean, that was a beast of a kick.
Great punt. But with that drop, you can definitely see, the little bit of jitters that he had, just being in the Super Bowl under the bright lights. But once again, that was an awesome punt. And, they had to repunt, not because of him. They had to repunt because it was a hole. And then he goes out and he shanks it. And, that kind of, hurt the Kansas City Chiefs because that gave, not the New England Patriots. I'm thinking of Brady. Oh my God.
Well, you're thinking about that because Brady gets set up on the 38-yard line, and who does he find for another touchdown?
He finds, his buddy in Gronk for another touchdown. So,
yeah.
and that kind of seemed like, that when that happened, it really kind of seemed like the game was over after that point.
Well, again, to me, the next drive, though, Kansas City, they come out and they finally show some signs of life. Kelsey gets involved, 13-yard reception, 12-yard, 11-yard completions. Tampa bends, though, and they don't break, forces Kansas City to settle for a field goal. But you just kind of felt like, okay, Mahomes in the offense, and you're saying you thought it was over. To me, I felt like Mahomes in the offense, they finally look like they're going to get going. It's too bad they couldn't score that TD, but at least it was something. I had to give them some confidence going into the half.
Yeah, but when you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you're used to scoring touchdowns. You're not used to kicking field goals.
Field goals are punts.
Yeah, and I really think, by them not scoring a touchdown and getting a field goal out of it, I think that was a little bit frustrating. Like, yeah, they put points up on the board, but at the end of the day, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They want to, score 6. So I think it was definitely a little frustrating to even kick the field goal, even though they did put points up on the board.
Well, you thought they brought it back to one possession. It's 14-6, 1 minute left. They're probably not going to give up any points. But the problem is Brady and the Bucs, they used 2 big pass interference penalties. One was a downfield shot to Mike Evans, and one was in the end zone. But it basically covers over 40 yards of ground to set up a Brady to Antonio Brown 1-yard touchdown pass. 21-6 with 6 seconds left before the half. But I want to know, what did you think of that second defensive pass interference call in the end zone? Because to me, Honey Badger on the coverage definitely stopped Evans in the end zone. almost undoubtedly though. Like to me, like that ball appeared to be uncatchable.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Nick. The ball really seemed like it was uncatchable. It really seemed like it was good defense. You got Mike Evans, who's a physical guy, physical receiver, big receiver. He
Right.
kind of wants to box you out and kind of go get inside and get position. And then you have the Honey Badger on the other side, and Tyrann Mathieu, who's also a physical, safety hybrid corner who also wants to get physical. You kind of have to let those two guys fight. I don't think it was a lot of grabbing or a lot of interference in that regards. But the call was what it was, and they threw a flag on that, and they thought it was a little bit more than what it was. But if the referees would have kept that flag in the pocket, I would have been okay with the non-call because I really didn't think it was much there.
8 first half penalties for Kansas City. Killer. And especially on that drive. I'm with you though in that situation. Just hold the flag on that one, because that, to me, if it's even close, which that was definitely a close call, to give the Bucs the ball on the 1 yard line, that's the difference between a field goal and a touchdown in that situation. So Tampa Bay gets a little bit of a gift before halftime with that. But the first one was definitely a pass interference. The downfield shot to Evans, no problem with that call. So
Yeah. No problem with that one. But
Yeah.
the one in the end zone, that one was kind of debatable right there. I thought the referees should have held off on throwing the flag on that one.
Agree. And again, difference between a 17-6 versus 21-6, which is pretty significant. But you saw a little jawing from the Honey Badger, a little bit getting in Brady's, sticking that finger right in Tom Brady's face right after, and you're like, what did he just say? I want to know what he said. But either way, he was fuming on the sideline, the Honey Badger, heading into the locker room, and you knew that Chiefs locker room was probably going to get pretty nasty in there. And you got to think that those guys were going to come out with a chip on their shoulder in the second half. 21-6 first half lead, though. If you're playing this offense in Tampa, it's still only 2 possessions. It's still only a 2-possession game technically. So I think that if you're Tampa, you're feeling great about your chances, but by no means celebratory at this point.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, especially knowing, you have Patrick Mahomes, and even though you played a pretty good, clean first half on the defense side of the ball, you still got Patrick Mahomes in the backfield, and you still have, the weapons on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't flip the switch. And that's one of the things that we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs late in the season in regards to, it really seems like they're bored out there. It really seems like you made the analogy early in the show, Nick, about the Golden State Warriors, where, they're just kind of take a quarter off, and then they're just like, okay, guys, let's play. Let's kind of, kick it up a notch. And it really didn't seem like, the Kansas City Chiefs had that moment. And that's because, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense was just all over them. Devin White, Antoine Winfield, it just, every player just seems like they were playing, on their top level. And it just really seems like they were not going to lose the game. And if they was going to lose the game, it wasn't going to be because of the defense.
To your point, everyone, it's exhausting taking everyone's best shot. So good on the Chiefs for going 14-2. But we talked about that 10-game winning streak before taking a knee against the Chargers. 7 of their last wins, their last 7 wins before the playoffs. You ready for this? 33-31 against Carolina, 35-31 against Las Vegas, 27-24 3-point win against the Bucs. They had a 22-16 win against the Broncos. 33-27 against the Dolphins, 32-29 against the Saints, and 17-14 against the Falcons. So this was a team that played a lot of close games down the stretch. And then even in the playoffs, a 5-point win over the Browns before that Bills game, they really blew the Bills out in that game. But we talked about that down the stretch a lot. Like, is this team just looking ahead to the playoffs? And they're good enough to do so they get away with it. But I don't know, but maybe we saw a little bit of that this game. I don't know if there was that switch. They're so used to being able to just flip that switch on, and we just, especially in this first half, you just didn't see hardly anything out of them. And to me, that was shocking. The fact that you even play 2 quarters of football like this against the Chiefs, you certainly put yourself in a good position to win. So we'll get to the second half in a minute, but everyone on Twitter's got a freaking opinion about the halftime show, so why shouldn't we? So Hey, what'd you think of the halftime show, Rob? Because my only take on it was, yeah, the Weeknd's got a couple good songs and everything, but like I've never seen a guy be in so many places in one show. It's like every time he showed up, I'm like, wait, did he just move like another like 1,000 feet
Yeah, yeah, I know this.
quickly too?
I know the halftime. I know the halftime show is definitely one of the big things. It definitely when it comes to the Super Bowl. But honestly, I'm one of those person who doesn't really get up for the halftime
It's
performances. And
it's,
I
it's
tell
always
you what,
disappointing.
I walked out. I didn't even get a chance to watch it. I left the room. I kind of
Damn
read
right. I'm proud of you.
read up on some snacks and stuff like that. Use the time for bathroom breaks. Use the time to call and text people. But for the most part, I didn't even get a chance to watch it, and I don't think it was one of those great performances where everyone is just like, oh my god, that's the ultimate performance. I'm glad I got to see it. So I don't think I heard that noise on social media, so I don't think I really missed too
You
much.
know what? I like that you've made me embarrassed for even asking the question because this is a football podcast. This is a football podcast for football, and we take break. We re up on snacks at the halftime show. I'm embarrassed I even asked the question. It'll never happen again. I apologize to you in the audience, Rob. Jeez, talking about halftime shows. Get out of here. All right, let's get back to the third quarter. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like we talked about. What happens right out of the gate? Boom, 26-yard run. 2 plays later, 10-yard run. Give the ball to Clyde. Give the ball to Clyde. But once again, the drive ends up stalling. Chiefs settle for a long field goal, 21-9. It's first drive of the third quarter, and they got what's ultimately going to be their final score of the game. Still unbelievable. But again, you felt like, okay, the Bucs dodged another bullet. Bend but don't break. That's a win. Field goal's a win against the Chiefs on that drive. But it's really a matter of time before Kansas City breaks through, right?
You kind of felt like it was coming, but once again, like if the Tampa Bay secondary is playing this cover three, this cover two, keeping the safety over the top or keeping two defenders over the top to kind of not let Tyreek Hill or Miko Hardman beat them deep, you kind of want to run the ball. Why not run the ball and kind of bring those safeties up to kind of respect the run? And it really seemed like Andy Reid and that offense didn't do that. They kind of made themselves one-dimensional. It really wasn't the Tampa Bay defense making them one-dimensional. It was really the Kansas City Chiefs keeping their own selves one-dimensional because of the play calling. Just like you said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire came out with like a couple great runs. You kind of wanted to feed him a little bit more. And I know we was talking about Andy Reid and running the ball when he was back in Philadelphia with Brian Westbrook. But I tell you what, one thing that he did with Brian Westbrook, he got him involved, whether it was through the screen game, whether it was through
Right.
the halfback draws or stuff like that. We didn't see any of that in this particular game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire or any running back in the backfield for that matter.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm pulling up the receiving stats. All right. So Helaire, I mentioned 9 carries, 64 yards. The second leading rusher was Pat Mahomes, 5 carries for 33 yards. But receiving wise, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 2 receptions for 23 yards. That's it. And,
Wow.
and
Two receptions.
yeah. So I mean, and then you saw Darrell Williams 2 receptions for 10 yards. So really 4 receptions to the running backs. Where I have to imagine, without looking at the stats and going back through every game, that Kansas City probably completes more in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 passes to running backs a game, I would guess.
Yeah.
So hey man, it's a great point. It's too bad, but you kind of start to see why Helaire didn't. They really went away from the run game, because when you got Mahomes and you need to start scoring fast, screw it. Let's go downfield. Let's take those shots, because on the next drive, Tampa goes right down the field, and here we go again. Playoff Lenny. There's playoff Lenny again. Gronk, Fournette, 12-yard run. Gronk runs out, nice reception, run after the catch, down 25-yard gain to the 27-yard line, and Fournette runs for a 27-yard touchdown. Untouched too, by the way, well blocked. He just went over to the right, got to the outside, hit a hole, and I mean, as soon as he picked up speed, I mean, he was about 20. I think before he even hit the line of scrimmage, I called a touchdown on the screen.
Yeah. That I saw that a mile away. That
Yeah.
the hole was just there, and he hit it full speed, and nobody was bringing him down at that point. And after that, you just kind of felt the juice slipping away from Patrick Mahomes in that offense. It just felt like there's no way they can come back after that.
All right, so that's that's my question for you because I'm still sitting there going like, boy, it doesn't look good, but their chances are dwindling, but I still think they have a chance. I wasn't ready to quit on them yet. Kansas City gets the ball back. Second down sack by Shaq Barrett puts him in 3rd and long, and then Mahomes gets the ball picked off by rookie safety Antoine Winfield. I believe is on a tip to set up the Bucs at the KC 45. Brady leads the offense down to the Kansas City 19, but then has a near disaster. Snap goes way over his head. He ends up recovering the fumble at the 34-yard line. Ryan Suckup knocks through a 52-yard field goal. And really already 3rd quarter here, it's a final margin of 31-9. So the Chiefs finished the game. They ended up racking up 182 yards in the 4th quarter. We saw them go up and down the field, but they turned the ball over on downs twice. A tipped interception in the end zone sealed the deal, while the Bucs offense just kind of ran the clock out. But hey, even on that tipped interception in the last play that came for the Chiefs, holy crap, that throw by Mahomes where he's almost full out, like just completely stretched horizontally, like almost parallel to the ground, and he throws a 30-yard pass to the end zone. And by
Yeah,
the way, it should have been completed, went through the guy's hands.
yeah, definitely one of the best throws, the best incomplete throws of the night. I mean, not even incomplete or complete, just one of the better throws of the
Yeah.
night, regardless. But I tell you what, we knew Patrick Mahomes was struggling. We knew the offensive line was struggling, throughout the game. But Patrick Mahomes did give his guys a few opportunities to make plays. And when you have
Mhm.
a game where your number one superstar and Patrick Mahomes is struggling a little bit, you kind of want to have those other guys to help him out and bail him out and make a play. And Tyreek Hill had a great opportunity to do that in the first half, but the ball actually hit him in the helmet and the face mask, and
Mhm.
he didn't come down with that catch. You see him make that catch, time and time again. But for some reason, the ball just wasn't going in KC's direction last night.
Nothing did.
And Tampa Bay took a full advantage of it. And I tell you, that's one of the things that Tom Brady brings to your team. If you're not going to capitalize on the opportunities that's out there for you, Tom Brady is not going to give you too much opportunity. So we seen Tom Brady kind of give the game away with the Green Bay Packers, throwing the 3 interceptions. But once again, the defense stepped up and they played very, very well. So that was a game that Green Bay could have won and should have won, but they didn't. But once again, you gotta come up with the opportunities that presents themselves when you're playing against one of the greats ever to play any team sport in Tom Brady.
So the Tampa Bay wins the Super Bowl 31-9 over Kansas City. Excellent performance defensively. Sounds like the gang's all coming back too. Brady says he's coming back. Arians made a reference to coming back. Says we want to bring our guys back next year. Like meaning, like I know they got a lot of 1-year contracts with some of these notable guys. Hopefully they figure out a situation on that. It'd be cool to see them actually go through and defend their title because I mean this Bucks team at the end of the day they were 11-5, but through midseason they were 7-5. So we saw them figure it out over time. But it'd be interesting to see them as the defending champs go through and take the type of shots the Chiefs take week in and week out. And make no mistake about it, the Chiefs are still the gold standard in football. I think the Bucks you got this year, it's your title, congratulations. But if you play that game 10 times last night, I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are winning about 7 or 8 of them. So I think we saw a nice upset last night. Definitely a fun game. It's weird to be rooting for Tom Brady after most of America, even though I don't personally have anything against Tom Brady. It's just you're tired of the Patriots and you're sick of them. And Brady comes down to Tampa and he all of a sudden he becomes likable. It almost felt like an underdog. But if you were a crazy person, Rob, and you actually thought the Bucks defense would hold the Chiefs out of the end zone entirely, and you placed a good sum of money on it, 25-1 odds in Vegas, you would have cashed in big time.
Yeah, you really would, but I mean, you had to be really, really crazy to kind of place that wager, because no matter how great this Tampa Bay defense played, throughout the year, it had its spurts where it like once again, the Week 12 matchup we saw this secondary give up 200 receiving yards to
Yep.
Tyreek Hill in the first quarter, not the whole game, but the first quarter. And we saw some pretty big performances, from the Saints against this Tampa Bay defense as well. So I mean, to say that this defense was going to go in and hold Patrick Mahomes in this offense, scoreless, I don't think anyone would have thought that. But once again, it was a great defense performance. Patrick Mahomes, he played fairly well, but once again, you kind of want to have your playmakers on the outside kind of help you out. And I know Travis Kelce set a record with receiving yards, but we know one of the biggest offensive weapons that they have is Tyreek Hill, and he kind of was bottled up for the most part of the night, and that was one of the main reasons that this defense did pretty good, and it actually won on both sides of the ball. The O-line protected Brady fairly well, and the defense front got after Patrick Mahomes. So normally when you win the game in the trenches on both sides of the ball, you're going to be the team that wins the game, and that's what pretty much it came down to.
Yeah, Kelsey 10 receptions for 133 yards, Hill 7 for 73, but none of it felt significant. A lot of it kind of in junk time, not really in situations that mattered a whole lot. Mahomes ends up 26 of 49, 270 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 INTs. Story of the game though, Tampa Bay's defensive front, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. And Dominican Sue had 1.5. Cam Gill had a half a sack. And Shaq Barrett had only 1 sack, even though it felt like he was in Mahomes' face all night. And if it felt like that, it's because they hit Mahomes 10 times. So, I mean, you saw a couple, even one of the ones that was, I believe it was penalized, where he got crunched by 3 guys. It kind of reminded me of the Monstars playing the Looney Tunes in Space Jam, the way he got hit there. It was just ridiculous. Like, I'm surprised he didn't get injured the way he got crunched up on.
Yeah, I tell you what, that defense was all over Patrick Mahomes. It kind of felt, like the Giants Patriots matchup when Michael Strahan
Right.
and Justin Tuck and Osi Umeora was just all over Tom Brady in that particular Super Bowl. That's what it felt like. And Patrick Mahomes couldn't do nothing to kind of get him off of him. That's why I wish they would have kind of relied on the running game a little bit more, or kind of set up a little more running back screens and it kind of take a pressure off that defense coming full force at Patrick Mahomes. But Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy didn't adjust to the defensive calls that they could have throughout the game.
How about JPP, that story arc of a career? I mean, he played on those Giants teams that you're referencing as a young player, and now as the grizzly old vet with the Bucs, same story pretty much. But I mean, this Buccaneers defense, it's easy to praise the defensive front. They were so awesome, but they kept talking about on screen last night. Tony Romo kept referencing the dropping the 2 safeties deep on every play, which that works because you're getting the pass rush with the front and because you got those guys at that second level. I mean, Devin White and Levante David, it's almost like a cheat code having those guys both at linebacker. I mean, Levante has obviously been there and established, but man, that Devin White pick, that he's going to be a superstar for years to come. Levante David hasn't got the attention he deserves because the Bucs have not been good, but now that they're good, I hope he gets some shine on him because he definitely deserves a spotlight. But between him and Devin White, the problem is White might be taking over from him. But I'm telling you, Devin White and Levante David, the Bucs are set for a couple of years at that linebacker spot.
Yeah, they really are, and especially behind them with the rookie that they drafted in this previous draft, and Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah,
I mean,
good pick there too.
that was a great pickup for them on the back end. And then when you have Jamel Dean and you have Carlton Davis, long rangey corners that can kind of get physical on the outside. And if you have that safety on the back end that kind of make plays in that defense, especially with Levante David and Devin White, and then you have the guys up front. So I really think this defense is set up, to make a run if everybody can kind of stay together. I know Chris Godwin Godwin on the offense side of the ball is a free agent. We talked about it earlier. Will he go out and chase money, or will he kind of take the hometown discount and come back
He
to
should
kind of
chase money.
compete with the ring? But me personally, I think he goes out there and he chases the
Yeah.
money because he got the ring, so he goes out there and he gets a big payday.
Go get paid, Chris Godwin.
Go get paid. It maybe go get paid for a team who might be in potential to win a Super Bowl. So
Yep.
I would definitely love to see him on that Buffalo Bills team if they have the cap to get him. Chris Godwin and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley with Josh Allen. With
Lord.
that development, that would be pretty ridiculous. Or hey, he can go out. He can go anywhere. I think he established himself as a good slot receiver to kind of for teams to go out there and pay some big money for him to kind of push him over the hump. But this was a great Super Bowl for Tampa Bay. If you're a Tampa Bay fan, if you're a Tom Brady fan, if you're a fan of just the individual players, I think this was a great win for Tampa Bay. But once again, Kansas City really didn't come out and play their best. And I know people's going to say, hey, it was all Tampa Bay, but Kansas City had some variables and some factors in there that they didn't play up to their level of competition. I tell you that.
I agree with that. Tampa definitely impacted that, but it was a little bit of both. It really was. That was not the best. That's what you like to see. That was actually one of the things I said last night. I was watching the game with my buddy. I was like, hey, look, I'm Tampa's playing great here, but you want to see Kansas City go down with their best shot. Right. And we definitely didn't get that last night. And again, part of it's, because Mahomes can't get more than a second to throw the ball. But part of it was that even when they had opportunities to make plays, they just didn't do that. And that's very unusual for the Kansas City Chiefs. But hey, never to fear, Rob. This is a real headline from the Kansas City Star this morning. After defeat in Tampa, Kansas City Chiefs fans already looking to next Super Bowl. Okay. How many teams say that? I mean, like, you got Pat Mahomes. Like, does that sound like a fan base that's worried?
It really doesn't, and that's the beauty of having Patrick Mahomes. One of the best quarterbacks that we have in the NFL right now. That's just the beauty of having him. And I'll tell you what, the New England Patriots was thinking the same. The New England Patriots fan base was thinking the same thing. After Brady lost his Super Bowls, they're going to be right back in there next year, and that's that's the Patrick Mahomes effect. We talk about the Tom Brady effect, but it's a such thing called the Patrick Mahomes effect as well. And as long as you have him standing upright and healthy, and you can protect for him, you're going to be right back in the thick of things next year.
Yeah, it's almost like when you have the best quarterback of a generation, you'll be fine.
Yeah, but I tell you what, I tell you one thing that Kansas City needs to do moving forward is they definitely have to invest, some pieces on that defense side of the ball. I don't really think they have enough playmakers on the defense side of the ball to kind of help the offense out if the offense is struggling like we saw that they were struggling in the Super Bowl.
It'll be interesting what you start to see with these teams that make these runs. And this is what, by the way, it's nice to have a break around Super Bowl time about talking about Belichick and the Patriots, but here we are. I'm going to bring it up. What's so impressive with what they did is they didn't get stuck paying big contracts they didn't want to pay. And that was because they they let Tom freaking Brady walk out the door. They do it the right way. It's too tough to do. Most people get emotional attachment. These Bucs players are going to get way overpaid. Anyone with a Super Bowl attached to their name gets a nice deal somewhere. Like, oh, that guy was part of a Super Bowl winner. Why not add it? These guys, their value just went up on the market. And so you like to see the Bucs stay disciplined here and think that they're going to do that. But some of these guys, they might overpay to bring back. Kansas City, you paid Mahomes. You really are all about Mahomes, though. It's about making that offense work. So what I think we're going to see this offseason is you might shed some big contracts. And, I'm just throwing a name out there like Frank Clark. I don't think specifically, I don't know anything about, I don't know enough about their cap room to speculate too much on it. But, I'm just thinking of him because he was a big signing from Seattle after they signed and trade with Seattle. But like some of these veteran guys that are big hits on the books, I think if the Chiefs are wise, they'll start moving on and they'll start finding some younger guys to replace them. And, hey, look, at the end of the day, Eric Fisher, was he about year 8 of his, is he 7 or 8? Something like that. He's been around for quite a while at left tackle. Both your left tackles, Mitchell Schwartz has been a stalwart on that line, and he's missed the last couple seasons, had a little bit of the injury bug. But I think like with Schwartz, I think you bring him back. It's a no brainer. But do you move on from a guy like Fisher? Like, something along the offensive line, you got to make sure you can never let that happen again. What happened to Mahomes? You got to protect Mahomes. And if I'm the Chiefs, I'm putting a lot of money up front in that offensive line. And then you could go draft receivers all day long and draft running backs all day long. You could go find guys, pay Kelsey, pay the line, and then go draft the defense, go draft the receivers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I think they have Kelsey and Tyreek Hill locked up for a couple more years. You still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the rookie contract, and you know what he can do. He had a great rookie year. I think he can only get better within that system and that offense. Hopefully, they use him more moving forward. I know he was kind of nicked up and banged up late in the season. But once again, you kind of have to get him a backup. And I think Damian Williams coming back, I know he opted out early in the year because of COVID and everything. You get him back next year. So I think that running back room is going to be okay. Maybe draft a receiver or another tight end late in this draft. But just like you say, you kind of have to beef up that offensive line, and you definitely have to, draft some playmakers on the defense side of the ball to kind of stay competitive year in and year out. And with Patrick Mahomes' ability and talent, he's going to keep you in games because he's one of the best quarterbacks that we have in the NFL. But you don't want him to, burn out. You kind of want to give him a little bit more help. So especially on that defense and offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, I never want to see Mahomes run around like he did last night again, ever. And if you're not doing that for him, you're not doing your job. Like, find a way to protect. You cannot afford him taking those kind of hits again, ever again. You never want to see that. But hey, you know what? Even Brady didn't win them all. Brady's lost a few Super Bowls himself, so no reason to panic in Kansas City. Just, I think, got to be frugal, got to prune a little bit, cut off the right branches, kind of refresh on some areas, but they'll run it back. I mean, what are the odds that the Chiefs are not in the AFC Championship game again next season?
Yeah, I think it's pretty high that they're going to be right back in the thick of things.
They're gonna have a shot.
They're
gonna have a shot. I mean, maybe you'll see a team like Buffalo, take the next step or whatever. Maybe Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars rise up and become an unbeatable dynasty for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some up and coming quarterbacks that that can kind of dethrone Patrick Mahomes. I know Patrick Mahomes is the standard right now in the AFC, but at the end of the day, Josh Allen, had a remarkable year this year. Lamar Jackson, he didn't kind of live up to the season he had before with his MVP year, but he's right there in the thick of things. And then you got Justin Herbert, another rookie quarterback who's up and coming. You have Joe Burrow, so it's a lot of capable quarterbacks that we have in the AFC that can kind of, come up and compete with Patrick Mahomes. But
from Deshaun Watson,
depending on if he stays in the AFC,
I was going to ask, where do you see him going?
He's another one. So it's a lot of capable quarterbacks that can kind of, take over the mantle for best quarterback. But it's up to the team and what the team does around the quarterback. If the team gives them pieces, if the team, creates a good offensive line around them. So I think right now the Chiefs is far along ahead in that, particular thing from a team aspect than any of those other quarterbacks. So I put Patrick Mahomes right back up there in the AFC Championship Super Bowl game again. I know, Vegas got them as being the favorites right now entering the 21 season, plus 550. So if you want to get the Chiefs and you think the Chiefs is going to be right back in the Super Bowl again, go ahead and get them now, Nick.
I'll tell you what, the team that needs to make the trade for Deshaun Watson are the Chiefs' biggest rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders. If I'm the Raiders, I'm easily giving up 2 first-rounders and Derek Carr and then some for Watson. It's really no brainer for me. So, because you have to catch Pat Mahomes, and if you could press fast forward on that process by getting the right quarterback, because with all due respect to Derek Carr, I think he's a good quarterback. I think he is On some days, he even plays at that elite level that you want to see. I mean, we saw him beat Mahomes in a shootout this year. He can play on it some days, but he don't bring that week to week. He's not going to take you on a 4-game playoff run like Tom Brady. Like, be that he could be that consistent guy like week to week, like Brady needed to be on a 4-game playoff run or 8-game win streak down the stretch. You need a high scoring quarterback that can go up and down the field with Mahomes. And if you're the Raiders, I mean, hell, I might even think about 3 first rounders for Watson.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's an arms race, and Brady, he just added another Super Bowl to his trophy, and he probably has 1 to 2 more years in him. So right now, Patrick Mahomes, it's Patrick Mahomes and it's everyone else. I know Aaron Rodgers is still out there playing at an elite level, but at the end of the day, I think outside of Patrick Mahomes, you take Tom Brady out of the equation. I think right now it's an arms race to kind of get one of those quarterbacks that can win you a Super Bowl. And outside of Tom Brady, I think right now it's Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson. I think, that is the hierarchy right now that we have when it comes to NFL quarterbacks that can go out there and win you a Super Bowl, just off the strength of their talent. But outside of that, if you put them in the right system and have the right pieces around them, maybe Josh Allen can pull it off. Who else is out there at this point? I
think
don't
about
see...
how many first round picks the Raiders blow.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a Raiders fan, would you be upset about losing for 3 Derek Carr and 3 first rounders for Deshaun Watson? Would that upset you? Would you be like, oh, we overpaid? No.
No. I think it's certain players that you can never overpay for. And I know, it always, this narrative and this discussion always goes back to Herschel Walker, where, they just give up the team just gives up the farm for Herschel Walker and he doesn't pan out. But that's a running back. And I tell you what, in order to win Super Bowls and championships, you have to have a capable quarterback. And right now it's only, a handful of capable quarterbacks that can go out there and win you a Super Bowl. So if you have to give up 3 first rounds and you're starting quarterback, why not? So, and I tell you what, not only the Raiders should do that, any other teams that's in the running should do that as well for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, but especially the Raiders being in the same division with Mahomes. You're just going to be buried for 10 years if you don't make that trade. And you'll be way worse off without him, without Watson, than you would giving up those 3 first round picks, unless you're going to get a top 5 pick and get a franchise changing quarterback, which seems unlikely. Or if you draft one, which again, good luck. It's pretty tough. I mean, there's no guarantees in the draft either. So.
And at this moment, Deshaun Watson is the most guaranteed thing right now. So I know, everyone's looking at this draft as at the quarterback position, and Mac Jones and, Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and Trey Lance and Kyle Trask. But at the end of the day, they're not known commodities. We know what they could do on the collegiate level, but we don't know what they could do in the NFL. Deshaun Watson has proved that, not only can he lead his teams to wins in the NFL, he can also throw for the most yards in the NFL. Right. With no weapons on the outside, with DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona, that's crazy that Deshaun Watson led the league in passing yards with his number 1 receiver.
Well, it's easier to do when you're losing and you can just throw the ball the entire second half.
Yeah, you're right about that. But once again, who is he throwing to? It's not like he's
Will
throwing
Fuller,
to
baby.
I mean, Will Fuller on steroids. That's who he's throwing.
That's the best kind of Will Fuller.
That's who he's throwing to, and Will Fuller, who can never play a full season.
That's the only tough part.
But I tell you what, Deshaun Watson is, a top-tier quarterback in this league. And if it's a team out there that can kind of pull the trigger and give up, 2 to 3 first-round draft picks, I would definitely do that right now, because at the end of the day, Brady, we say Brady is, he's battling with Father Time right now, but ultimately, he is in a great situation with Bruce Arians and that coaching staff and that those weapons he has on the outside and that defense. So he's in a perfect situation right now. And you kind of have to put, Matthew Stafford, perfect example. He's right now, Matthew Stafford is in a perfect situation. He's in probably the best situation he's ever been in his whole career. He has a defense that can go out there and win you games by themselves. He has an up and coming running back in Cam Akers, and he has weapons on the outside and Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and he has a capable tight end. So Matthew Stafford is probably in the best situation, and that's what the Rams did. They went out there and they say, hey, it's an arms race. We want to compete for a Super Bowl when we want to win right now while we have the talent to do it. So if you're a team that's rebuilding, like the Chargers with, Justin Herbert, or Tua with the Dolphins, and Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, you don't have to, you're not competing to win the Super Bowl right away. But if you're those other teams that kind of have your team built well to kind of compete, and the only thing that you really need is a quarterback, why not pull the trigger? And I not only the maybe the New York Jets pull the trigger. Maybe the Oakland Raiders pull the trigger. Maybe the 49ers pull the trigger. But I tell you what, I would definitely pull the trigger for Deshaun Watson.
I just don't want to see, for Watson's sake, I don't want to see him end up with the Jets or Chicago. They're just going to screw him up.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, reports.
Gruden and Watson going up against Mahomes and Reed every year in the AFC West. Woo!
Yeah, that would be a good battle.
That would be fun.
That definitely be a good battle. But as we doing this pod right now, Nick, reports are coming out that Carson Wentz might be going to the Bears. So that might be one less team Deshaun Watson has to worry about out there in the Chicago Bears.
Hey, from this Jaguars fan here, good as long as it's not the Colts. Because even though Wentz, you could say people are down on Wentz right now, but I don't need Wentz to reinvigorate his career. Like, can the Colts for once play a season without a top 5 drafted quarterback? That's all I ask for. I've had to watch that since 1998. Like, we've shared a division with the Colts since 2002, and there's only been like one season where they haven't had a top 5 quarterback at the helm. So it'd be nice to get a break from that with Indianapolis. So looking forward to that. So hopefully Wentz does go to Chicago and root for that. And you know what? I know you're a Vikings guy, but that's not a death sentence for you.
Yeah, I tell you what, I can welcome Wentz to the Chicago. I definitely welcome Wentz more than Deshaun Watson to the NFC North. But with that being said, to kind of wrap up everything, I'm so grateful that we got to witness a Super Bowl, even though it didn't turn out to be the matchup that we wanted to be. But just to have a Super Bowl, knowing that everything's been going on with, the pandemic and COVID, and just to have, Roger Goodell and the NFL and all the people associated with it kind of put on the Super Bowl and to have a great season. I know it wasn't the best season. It has its ups and downs, especially with games being postponed or canceled. But once again, we got to see another Super Bowl. So I'm definitely grateful for it, even though it didn't turn up to be the matchup that we expected.
And the NFL did a great job this year. I was thrilled too. Yeah. And you're right. It was like, it could have hoped for a little better game in the Super Bowl between those two teams, but hey, Tampa showed up with their A game. Kansas City did not. So it is what it is. But again, I didn't even normally get a little disappointed in that. But with this year, the fact that the game's even going on and that things are happening, like, hey, like good on the NFL for getting through the season and not folding up shop early on. So awesome year with these guys, and definitely looking forward to next year. Man, I hope we all are in good shape by September, and hopefully we can go to some NFL games. It was really weird not going to any NFL games this year, so I would like to get back into the stadium starting next fall. But for American Football Stories podcast, though, we've been teasing it a little bit, but the Super Bowl does mark the end of our game-to-game coverage with the NFL, and we're not going to be totally absent of NFL talk. It's hard to avoid, especially with draft coverage. We're going to have to know what's going on. So there'll be NFL talk on this podcast, but we are going to come at it from a college slant entirely. Maybe during Super Bowl week next year, the championship games when college football is down, we might pick up the NFL for a couple weeks for fun, but we're not going to do that game to game. Like, we gave coverage on every single NFL game this year, and we're not going to be doing that next year. We are going to be a college football centric podcast looking for college interviews and everything else We do have an NFL draft prospect coming up here in a couple weeks. Running back Caleb Huntley out of Ball State is expected to join us in the next couple weeks. And I know, Rob, you're chasing a couple big fish too for some interviews too. And hey, we got some fun projects we're working on, but we look forward to advancing as college football podcasts from here on out. And we will send you guys out. Tampa Bay wins the Super Bowl 31-9 over Kansas City. Great NFL season. Glad we got through it. Like Rob said, good perspective on that there. And thank you for joining us today on American Football Stories. We'll send you out with a word from our sponsor, Coach Paint. American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tellustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and would love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.